So we're going to look at the site and get those ideas. Your job in this section is to come up with preferably 4. 2 is an absolute minimum, but 3 is, I would say, is the minimum. Concept designs. And when I'm going to mention the word massing. Okay, so broadly, what sort of shape and size your buildings are going to be. We don't have every single window on there and doorway and things like that, but we're going to have a broad idea of the size and scale of your building on the site, or buildings. You might have more than one. Okay, and you're going to come up with at least 3, I would say. If you go to 2, you make your life a bit harder later on in the project. So go for 3 at least. The ones that got 6 out of 6 will generally have 4 or more, right? But 3 or 4 is what you should be aiming for. Different versions of what your building could be like based on the site analysis. And then what you're going to do is look at which one of those is the most appropriate to take forward. Now, you could throw a dart at it and see which one lands on, but what we want to do is kind of have a rationale behind, well, this is the best one because, right? That we can tell the examiner, I've looked at these factors, and actually, this is the best one for these reasons. And the things that we're going to look at, you're going to do those 4 designs in 2.1. Then for 2.2, you're going to do some bubble diagrams of floor plans. So you should have done that. Those of you that did level 2 would have done bubble diagrams and know what they are, about what adjacencies, what things are close to each other, what things need to be apart, and circulation through your building. And then we're going to look at some cost data. So you're going to analyze the cost of those in broad terms, the benchmark costs of those 3, 4, 5 designs. And then at the end of that, you're going to do an energy analysis of each one. And then at the end of that, you'll say, well, I've looked at energy, cost, layout for each of these 4 designs, and this is the best one because. Okay, so the next sort of 5 weeks we'll be building towards that section, right? So that will make sense so far. Good. Okay, on your PowerPoint, I've put this here for you to put notes in, because Jamie's here today, so you can put some notes in there. But what I'd rather you did, that's as a backup, what I'd rather you did is just write some notes down, put them in your phone. Obviously, that's all you're using your phone for, okay? Just bullet points that then you can write up later, so you can really be concentrating on what Jamie's saying. So key things that you think you could take away from this, okay? So with that, I'm going to pass you over to Jamie. Jamie, it's over to you.
Morning, everyone. I'm pushing buttons from there, am I?
Oh, I'm gonna just a second. I'm going to give you my keyboard.
Brilliant. Okay. So my name is Jamie Falla. I've originally from Guernsey. I've travelled via the Amazon, London, New York, LA. Enjoyed all of those places. I think my fundamental interest has always been shelter, where we live, how we live, what's interesting, and what do we all basically enjoy about the places we live. I'm a qualified technician before I became an award-winning architect. I stayed in London for 10 years, then went back to Guernsey and have ended up and settled in Jersey, which I'm really enjoying. So what I want to do today is show you a process that every architect and every person goes through in terms of site analysis. It's the same for any site, whether or not you're in a rural area, an urban area, and your site is a wonderful site. I think it's got a fantastic sort of aspect, both morning sun, evening sun, great views, some rugged territory and difficulties for you to look at. So let me,
if you just use the right and left button
on that one, that was
just, is it working through? Give me just, I'm going to click. Are you working?
Up and down, or
right and left, I think.
On that one.
Give me just 2 seconds, then it might be in my end.
So what we want to do is I'm going to show you.
Try one more time.
Okay, now that's yeah.
Right, cool.
So what is a site analysis? Essentially, it's for you to observe that site in detail to try and give you some helping hints and anecdotes for you to design with, so that you use that information whether it's the sun path or the routes through it or the levels, to create some existing information and information that drives your design. So basically, it helps you understand the people, the environment and the context to make and aid smart decisions. And I think that's what, now act as detectives, interrogate the site, interrogate everything about what you're after. What I'm going to show you is a few schemes by some amazing architects in various cities around the world that have similar context to Jersey Harbour, which is where your site is. And what we're trying to do is essentially take that information from observation, sketching, model making, and define a environmentally carbon conscious scheme that everyone enjoys living in, but also it gives civic pride for the community. So it's something that you can be proud of, and Jersey could be proud of, as buildings on the edge of the harbour, as people arrive into, it's a piece of sculpture almost on the landscape that you can think about. So there are 4 themes that I'll talk about, which is light and space, structure, connection, and atmosphere. And then you can either use those or use other ways, but essentially that's how we use these 4 themes to develop schemes on whatever site we're doing. Now, this first, light and space, we'll come back to this scheme later on, but it's about the context of where you are. The sun path, what time do you see that sun? And it'll be interesting when you start analysing your site, the views, the wind, aspect and orientation, the smells, and can you hear things? It's not just about, we've all become very observationally based, but I want you to hopefully walk around the site and get a feel for it, of where the best place is to sit, where the best place is to lay and enjoy that view, and then develop your schemes through looking at those areas. We'll look at that. So that, this is your site, and you want to make connections to the wonderful bits of what you see. Now, this is looking out towards St Albans and beyond, with the castle and the harbour, but there's also the view the other side. So this is looking west, and then there's looking east and looking north towards the town. And your site has all of those aspects. And I think try and take advantage of those things in your designs, in the way that you develop your apartment building or your buildings or massing diagrams. Structure. There's a real problem in this world now that we've just extracted every mineral and every bit of material, and concrete and steel is becoming very expensive, and its carbon is huge. So we're always trying to develop new ideas and reuse old materials. Now, we've been using stone for centuries, and Jersey has quarries, and actually we should be re-looking at using local stone in terms of construction and craft for buildings. And then there's other things where you use round earth with the stone to make walls, and these are all environmentally friendly as materials. And then there's timber, which is the other material that is renewable, and CLT as a timber building can now be built maybe upwards of 8 or 9 stories very easily. And for your well-being and health, timber is a fantastic material. And if it's made off-site, then essentially it's a great thing to, build quickly with it, and balance with craft-based things like the granite. So, have a look at combinations of both or various different options. They call these cyclop stones, but they're big pieces, and the local quarries could make them with recycled stone now that's broken up from old buildings. And that's the sort of thing that we all need to be looking at. Atmosphere. Well, what do you think? I mean, it's like, do you want to make dark rooms? Do you want to make light, airy rooms? Do you want to connect to the outside? Do you want it to be tall and double height or generous? There's a penthouse there. You know, you're allowed to do all of those things within your design once you feel you're getting the right connection. So whether it's a 1-bed flat, a studio, 2-bed flat, 3-bed flat, there's lots of options. Don't think that this is a ceiling height you need to work with. You might want a building that's 5 meters high in terms of ceiling heights in your apartments because it gets you up above the hillside to look back the other way. You could bring a building off the ground and have a park below it. There's lots of ways to just use the site and for you to develop your 2,500 square meters. And then the atmosphere is about what those rooms are like in the end. And, you know, as designers and thinking about that space, it's not about making boxes necessarily. It's about connections and making connections to the site, to the views, to the morning sun, to the evening light. So what are those attributes about? I think it's about respect for us as an island and for climate. And we all need to be more responsive to the 2030 goals and targets that we're all aiming for. So it's about asking questions of the site, of what, and then applying your values and what you believe a building could go on that site. And absolutely just dream, just absolutely feel free to test and play. This is the stage where nothing is wrong. And I'm going to show you some precedents from really top architects that have spent their life looking at shelter in different places in the world, and just sort of look at, there's no right or wrong. It is absolutely about you following through what you want it to be. And so Rogers, Piano, Ingalls, Brooks, you've got as a starting point, and then I'll finish with a couple of local ones that we've worked on and some different ways of exploring your ideas with pencil and pens and plasticine. So this is the first sketch of this building in Hyde Park and testing a shape relative to the views and the sun, and that all of those things can define shapes. And then, you know, this is about the contour line of the road, so it's looking at context and history of the site. But they're simple drawings, just pencil, quick overlays, bit of colour, and absolutely throw away, but never throw anything away. Always record it on your phones. Take a picture, because you'll use it to develop the ideas later on. And something that you might look really stupid to start with actually could unlock an idea later on. So always just keep testing, keep drawing, keep, you know, putting a line on the paper while you're understanding the site and the contours and the levels and the views. So it's just really understanding morning light, evening light, views across the park, the street line, what he was trying to do and how you get the views out, and the top stories of the building. So that's the views out, that's the 4 blocks. And you can see that first concept sketch was 4 blocks. They didn't know how it was going to be built. And as Simon said, don't worry about the doors and windows to start with. Think about the massing and how you want to do it and how it sits in the street and how it evolves. You know, it's running with the street, going up, going higher, back down. And you get into the layout later on. And when you get into those layouts, you can start adjusting the plan. And it's like a sponge, that plan, that you have an idea and that sponge can expand and contract depending on the size of your rooms. Lightness and refuge, Renzo Piano in Sydney. His concept for this building, those are Richard Rogers buildings. They're apartment blocks that basically Sydney Harbour is a sort of much more bigger example of what St Helier Harbour is, where it has these fingers that come down from the high ground, and that in each finger they build on. And basically this is what he wanted to do, and he wanted to make a crystalline building that was light. So as you see, that's the diagram to start with of the building. This is the model testing it. There's a concept of 4 crystal buildings that run up. He's the same guy who did the Shard, if you've seen that in London, and it's very much about letting a building go up into the air and then disappearing rather than having just a square top, which is, you know, I think a very wonderful way of dealing with Sydney. And then you can see how it rises up, and similar to Sydney Opera House, it rises up. Now this takes amazing advantage of views, but also there's something that he calls a winter garden. And I'd seriously sort of take some time to look at that, and also walk around Horizons down at the harbour. And I walk at Horizons most mornings, see the sun come up, wonderful views, but nobody uses their balconies. Renzo Piano has done a different thing, where what he terms a winter garden, that allows for the room to be sealed in single glazing, and it leaks. So it's not about being totally sealed, but it's about being protected from the wind. And these buildings are, you know, 20, 30 stories high, but people get an outside space essentially because they can open this glazing or drop down screens and solar blinds. And those are the sorts of things that I think you could look at environmentally. His buildings don't have air conditioning. So environmentally, they're much more economic, even though they've got quite a lot of technology in their windows that face the sun. But that first image that I showed you was a view out across Sydney Harbour. And it's like, you know, it allows breezes to come in to cool the house. And I think, you know, those are those interesting images that you can do some more work on relative to what Renzo Piano does in terms of apartments that have, rather than a balcony, they have winter gardens. And when you go down to Horizons building at St Helier, there's lots of balconies, but nobody's ever on them because it's too windy. So it's about trying to find protection and comfort, because we all want comfort. So this is Big, or York Ingalls, in New York. And instead of being a skyscraper, these are called ground scrapers. And that he basically, this is an example and a simple drawing of just what they did to adapt it. And these are the sorts of things as drawings that you might want to look at in, you know, just testing in terms of 3D and how the sun hits it. And he's got everyone, all of these windows here have views out over the Hudson River. So that's another way of looking at a building that takes advantage of the evening light or the morning light. You know, I think interesting building. And then again, it's trying to diagram the existing site or your building and take advantage of what we term the fifth plane, which is the roof. So what could be on those roofs? Is it green? Is it about collecting water? Is it about a swimming pool, outdoor space? You know, amenities don't need to only be at the ground, they could be on the roof as well, depending on what you want it to be. This is a vertical or green, as he terms it, green woodland. Boeri, Italian architect who is environmentally trying to create green parks vertically on certain schemes. So that again could really blend with the rock face that you've got or the landscape, and you know, in terms of planning, then that might be a better thing. But again, you can see what it does, and these diagrams talk about structure, greenery, and types of greenery, and the little spaces, and you don't have those answers straight away. You work into those and you build details later on, but it's about sort of, you know, fixing an idea. This is a house that I think you're looking at, or maybe it's part of. And what's interesting about this, in terms of what you're doing, is that it's got jagged edges and relief in terms of these balconies and double height spaces, and it's black, and that it's recessive in terms of the existing house or rock face against the building that's next door. So it's subservient. Other ones, big towers, may, you know, be more obvious on that site, but you may choose to do a building that's much more in relief and allowing yourself to have little crags and caves and areas that are outside covered so that, you know, it can be used all year round, which is the object of that site, I'm sure. So, you know, it's playing with the ideas and the massing of the site. This is another, just diagrams that Alison Brooks worked on for another scheme where you can see there's a high-rise block, there's 3 blocks in another scheme, green roofs, and then separating out the apartments into different types. And it's just using those different colours to easily define your scheme for people to, it communicates an idea for you to obviously just see. This is a really special building, and if you ever get a chance to go to Sydney, I've seen it for the first time in my life last year, and that Sydney Opera House, the guy who won the competition. This is Sydney Harbour, which is very much, as I said, these fingers that go out into the water. And essentially what the building is a simple plinth and a roof. And then essentially that's all it is. But there's lots of other little associations. So is it like clouds? They didn't know how to build it to start with. And it wasn't until O'Barrett, the engineer, so this is about collaboration, came up with the scheme 4 or 5 years after they won the competition, and that they used geometry. So you have the free flowing stuff, but actually it all goes back to nature, and that it's essentially cutting up an orange to make each of the areas so that they can engineer it. And that's how they built it. Oh, sorry. So essentially you can see there's lots of different things that guided Ertson's ideas. So, you know, he looked around Sydney Harbour, and this rough stone base is concrete, but it's the same colour and texture and tone as the harbour sandstone. And so he used it as a continuation of the building, and the seating of the 2 theatres are in that slab below. And then he wanted the lightweight sails above, so they sit above the plinth, and those shadow lines give you that break. But you can start to see the first sketch, a bit more development, and then the final building with the tiles. And each tile, there's over sort of, I think, like 8 million tiles, little individual tiles that make the roof structure that shines in different lights. There's, you know, so basically it sits in the harbour and allows the light from morning to evening to just reflect over the building. And this glazing, again, he used the wing of birds to understand how he could structure it. This is a building in St Brelard that we've worked on for the last 7 years. So to start with, it's pitching on site, understanding, and that connection, if you can spend half an hour, a morning and evening up on site and just get a feel for it, you'll understand the site much more and get a feeling for the wind, the bird song, the harbour. And those are all the things that make a connection to the site. So very much sort of, you know, first sketches in a little book, blown up, but just quick pencil sketches, just give you a connection to site. What are those main things? Arrows out to view. And then trying to make a concept with a plinth and a roof building that's based on a Jersey farmhouse and subservient wings either side, with a green terrace at lower level that hides the building. And then we dug out the site and used all the rock from the site to build the building. And so very much it was observing the rock face is just beautiful on site. So we used the rock, and we used something called tactile bronze to clad the upper building, and that bronze is sand cast and connected to the site in a great way. And these are early images of trying to replicate and soften the building into and blend it back into the landscape. But from a long way away, you hardly see it. because it's a sort of blended in with the landscape and sort of hidden. But it's a piece of sculpture almost in Brellards as well. It's not a white building. It's a tonally and textured building that responds to the site. And that's what you're always trying to do. And as you can see, this little diagram is a sketch of the bay, almost making a cave or a very simple place to live with natural elements of fire, water, connection to view, which is prospect, and then refuse, which is bedrooms and feeling safe. And we all need those things. So this is the connection at the back, and the rock, like you're going to have, is at the back of the building. This is another site where we've in c2.1, which is essentially a site that was damaged during the war, and the headland was removed, dug out and used to make bunkers on the end of the headland. And that what we've done is this is looking at the building from the back. What we've done is a sensitive little intervention where we've rebuilt and repaired the landscape and put a natural green roof over the top of it, and then hidden the building below, so that it's not really seen from anywhere, but it's sensitive to sight in the Coastal National Park, which helps get planning. That's under construction at the moment, and I think that should be relatively successful as a build.
Can I just jump you back one
Yes.
slide? Something I want you to take a real note of is where Jamie's used photographs and sketched over the top of them. I think it's a really, really useful way to work, because you're almost doing an instant 3D drawing without having to set anything up. So once you start modelling things in plasticine or in Lego, or start building models, photograph them and sketching over them is a really effective way. You can see how effective that is using a 3D model there, but then you can see where the view is, you can see where the sun path is, where the views out are. There's kind of a range of different things communicated in there, and it's a really useful and a really effective way for you to kind of communicate your work. Jamie.
Is that a house or just a...
No, it's a house.
a house?
Three bedroom house. So essentially, yeah, there's a concrete roof. All of this stone is actually leftover stone from that previous site, and so we're using local materials with local craftsmen who are really enjoying doing the dry stone walling. I almost put a picture of where we are, and maybe if you persuade Simon at some point, we can maybe go and visit it if you fancy a site visit over the next month or so. And with the roof, it's not what the planners wanted us to do is not make it suburban. Now I don't know if you know what I mean, but they didn't want a trampoline on there or garden play stuff. So we've absolutely made that roof and used the existing grass and soil from what was there previously, and I will replant it with local native species, so that it will just look like a bit of that headland eventually, and the building will almost be hidden. But the Germans weren't bad at getting their observation sort of places in the right place, or the militia previously. So there's some great views down towards St. Brellard's Bay, c2.1 Bay from the site, and that's why there's a curve in the plan that you don't see through that. So the whole building basically encapsulates that view, and the ceiling height is slightly higher, so it gets generosity. But we've also got a courtyard at the back that allows the morning sun to come in. So we've really sort of played with gaining every little bit, and that's what you guys, that's what your schemes can be, is just use the existing environment to generate what you do. So we keep summer sun out with the overhang, and we let winter sun in, so that the heating bills are much smaller. So I think what I'm trying to just generate here is that observe and take your time to just observe and understand the site, and that given time, the site will talk to you. record it and map everything. Take photographs, understand it, use it, because you'll never have it all up here. But if you visit site and take photographs are okay, but actually if you sketch, you'll actually make connections that are deeper than just photographs. And those build those layers of information for you. These are just some examples of different ways of drawing and information that you might look at and model and play around. The site section is crucial to this building. So draw a couple of site sections and get a feel for it, and then understand where the sun comes in and what's shaded and what isn't. You know, build some options and, you know, related to the site. Test it. You might build some models really quickly. So these are, you know, an interesting, just quick drawing that happens to be, there's the site and connects those views along to other things. Maybe the harbour, maybe some bollards, maybe something else, and ovens, or the morning sun. And essentially, the building's curve, like the one we've done, brackets, to do that. This one is interesting as a diagram because it sort of tries to reconnect the building to the original landscape. So the building is like the Alison Brooks one, basically goes up and down, so that it reflects and responds to nature and sits there. Same as the one on the right, you can see a straight building along the water's edge isn't necessarily the right thing. So they've broken it in plan and then they've adjusted it to the hillside. So you're always just playing and using nature to guide your design. You know, models that, you know, this fascinated me when I found it yesterday, was just sort of cutting up a block of your 2,500 square meters and using it as a horizontal and making a building like that. It's just a simple way of testing and playing. And all you're doing to start with is exploring and testing ideas. Site model next door. So that, you know, very much about trying to explore in any way you enjoy. Feel comfortable with testing. So it's pencil, pens, card, plasticine, but do it quite quickly, and that will evolve into something. So your site, these are some quick drawings. There's a historic background to the site. There's the existing headland that was there, and you might try to sketch on that. There's contours that you want to understand and use to develop the scheme. Measuring on site, walking, you know, most people have a tread of 1 meter, and that understand how long that site is. You don't need a tape measure. It's always good to have a tape measure, but you won't carry a 100-meter tape measure with you. Just try and understand how big the site is, or an area, or your room at home, so that you can define what your apartments are like. There's a very simple way of axonometric of the site and the surroundings. There's the site, put a building on it, and you can see the way the sun travels around it and the shadow line. And that, you know, I sometimes would prefer to be on the light side of a building rather than the dark side. This is just looking at a site, existing building, where these are the views. So again, it's using two-dimensional plan, but putting 3 dimensions or views onto that plan, so you can see what we're looking at. That's a model of that building. So it's a cardboard, and then again, this overlays it, as Simon was saying before, where you reapply and put the things back onto the site that you found out in terms of the views. So that's that process of just sort of seeing what you do there. So, you know, what I'd encourage you to think about is, you know, what are the basic necessities or elements of home for the apartments that you will design, and that, I know you can't go and visit this one, but the Côte de Saint-Brelard essentially has been occupied for 180,000 back down to 40,000 years old, and that we all need shelter, and that gave people what was prospect, which is looking out and feeling safe, and retreat, which is about somewhere to sleep and feel safe. And that as humans, it hasn't changed. Still the same. Maybe your place won't be as basic as that cave, but it still needs heating, water, food, and allowing maybe that morning sun to come up and feed the room. Other things that you can look at is, can you use the body heat of something down below as a heat exchange and heat recovery in your building, so you're not just using energy all the time. There's so many technologies now that you can look at in terms of energy, and just look at the colour of natural stone with a bit of evening sun on it, and that's understanding. So it's not just about observation; it's about feeling, it's about smell, tasting the site and feeling what it's like. So this is your site, guys, and all I'd say is, act as detectives and dream big and see where you get. Thank you.
Can you put your hands together for Jamie's talk? It took a lot of time to put together. I'm just wondering, we've kind of reached a natural break where we're going to start doing some of that stuff in today's lesson. So we could, you don't finish till 1:15, but if you want to take an early break, and then but still have 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and have a slightly longer lesson then. Is that all right with everybody? So I'll see you guys back here. Let's say 1:15 then. But just before everybody breaks for their lesson, you come back here. All right? Cool? Don't be late back, please.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Sorry?
Are we getting this power sent?
We're videoing it.
Oh, we're videoing
and the PowerPoint as well.
I can if you're in there, if you want to.
If it's with your permission, obviously.
I've never looked at it again, but it's nice to share. It's there.
Yeah, I know. It's I think they'll get a lot.
Just remember the question I had earlier about the building that was like hidden with the soil.
Concrete, the soil.
How deep was that into the hill?
Well, actually, there wasn't a hill. What we found out through what you're going to do is that through the historic photographs, we found out that the ridge had disappeared from the site. And so it was like, hold on, what happened there? And essentially what the Germans used to do is dig out and then use that material to build the bunkers. And the bunkers were back slightly higher. When we looked at the old maps back to 1750, and there's a couple of old maps in Jersey, you saw that the ridge line had come down, but it had been broken. So what we did was just say, well, okay, let's repair and rebuild it. So the soil, and it's quite shallow up there because it's a headland, so it's blown sand and blown soil. So we basically put a concrete roof and followed the line of the ridge and joined them again, and put gorse and grasses, which should be done in the next couple of months. But you'll see at the moment, there's basically a concrete roof that's ready to have 600 mil of local soil put back.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it, really. It was, it's been an amazing project. And then around the back, the slope from the dam that's down in the lower section, the hedging just comes up and joins with the roof. And then the natural stone is a bit like the mill at the bottom. So we're just using the local stone to give it context and a sort of sensitivity to site. And, we got planning for it. And that, they loved it. And the guys building it, says it is.
Yeah, I bet they love being able to put those skills into practice.
So the stonemasons are the ones that over the last 5 years argue to start with, and that's not the way we want to do it, Jamie. And then at the end, when they see the dry stone walling and how it's, it's an expensive process, but actually extracting that stone, and both of those projects from Jersey stone and not mixing it with French or mixing it with anything else, there's a colour and a tone to that image.
One is vernacular.
It's just vernacular. It's just absolutely vernacular, and it's keeping those guys busy. I mean, it's a hard thing.
A friend of mine's a stonemason.
And they love it though, and it's really nice going on site, and that's that mix that I really enjoy.
Funny you say that when I don't know if you watched did you watch the Reba program about House on the Hill?
Yeah.
So there was a similar process where they built a really straight.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the garden. Yeah. No, he talks about the garden, the dry stone walling there, and you know, they're not given a chance anymore
Yeah.
because the costs are so, or everyone has to sort of put a price in and then they have to build to that and the guys are under pressure. We try not to do that through negotiation where it takes what time it takes.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's,
If you've got a client
Yeah,
that can accommodate that,
yeah.
that's a
but
great.
we save money because they're not buying the rock and they're, you know, we're doing other things that you try and sort of still build it.
How have you managed to source the jersey? It's just from the site, the granite that you use.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no way to.
No mix.
Because nobody's quarrying, are they?
No, that's the weird in Guernsey. They've just started quarrying.
Because that's
I'm really excited.
when kids
Yeah.
were talking about using local stone,
Yeah.
and we said, well, you can't actually because there's no new local.
It's really sad. So Ronay's, there is quarrying, and you can go and get it, but that's how lazy stonemasons have become. Is that they'd rather buy the Portuguese and bring it over. But environmentally, that's not great.
No, of course.
The guy in the quarry, we went to visit the guy in the Jersey quarry, who everyone said was a grumpy old git and blah, blah, blah. He's lovely. He would love to be quarrying, but he's not allowed to blast anymore. Ronay's blast, and you can, and actually granite products blast. And a lot of the big rocks are kept for the harbours and protection. But actually, you could do it, which is what we're trying to develop with them at the moment, and talk to them about trying to get the cyclopean stone, which is a mix of concrete but a low carbon concrete and natural stone, carved up so that you can use it with the CRT as a building. But if it's local, and they are now recycling, they've now set up a sort of competition to AAL, so that they are bringing in stone and demolition material and sorting it at Granite Products. And that's a nice visit. I mean, it's just amazing. The guys are really, really helpful, because they've now decided that they can wash it. So they might be able to clean it up enough to be used in another product, because that's half the problem as well.
Yeah,
it's that it's not clean.
Ready to use.
So they're sort of doing various. It's just, you know, we could do it locally, but it needs everyone being
It's
part.
amazing with this climate roadmap that it's not been like, but look, if you want to, we don't want to be shipping a load of granite over from France.
Everyone talks in silos.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And you know, and it's sort of like, I'm not saying we'll get there, but it's like we built now 4 houses out of the stone that we got out of St. Bernard's, and it wasn't a quarry. It's just the cliff face that was cut to start with. We've dug it deeper, hidden the building, and there's a bunch of beautiful stone that is just part of the rock face, and that's it.
And you don't want to be, the thing is, you don't want to be landfilling loads of stuff that you're taking out of the ground. If you could use it on the site, that's something.
Yeah, no, it's really,
Jacob, I'm conscious if you do want to get your brand
it's really interesting, and we have to re-look at practice. I mean, you know, I'm 60 and I'm starting again, because the climate crisis is basically affecting how we design, which is interesting. I mean, you know, I've always been involved in energy conservation and homelessness and shelter, and what do we need to live in, and you know, but I'm doing I can't lie that I'm doing 10,000 square foot houses as well, but actually I'm interested in how we live at 40 square meters and what you need, and that we get the winter sun in at the moment, which is so nice, and we get the view of the sky, and we don't need much as humans to make it better.
I always use this room as an example of bad practice, where you know, like we've got no matter every single day of the year, no matter what time of year it is, whatever the weather conditions like, we have to have the lights on. It's too hot in the summer, it's too cold in the winter.
Amazing.
And it's just like, this is what 25
ends up now. Just amazing what he's doing. And
natural ventilation,
narrow plan, thermal mass, you know, heat recovery, and allowing that winter sun to come in or be controlled. And why and that's, I'm not saying, I know your client is, to go and be critical of horizons, but it's a very interesting thing that we all talk about. It's designed via the landscape, and these are going to be really beautiful apartments. Blah, blah. You're on the bloody exposed coast.
You get blown over.
Yeah, I mean, we walked there, and like, it was bitter the day before yesterday. As soon as that wind, that northwesterly came in, it's just freezing.
You wouldn't
And,
go out
and
there,
you,
would
but
you?
you can what you want, like they do in Switzerland, is the winter garden. So they do single glazing on the outside, really easy to open, but you get a terrace that's protected with a bit of air leakage, and you can control the vents. Now, I'm not trying to push you all down that way, but it's like it saves money because you don't have to do air conditioning, which is what all these.
Using Tron walls and.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it is,
loads of different options.
that's what those sort of materials, and it's just sort of there's so much to look at.
The sad thing is we get about a week to do.
No,
this.
I know, and I know.
Massive
But if
work.
it allows the guys in their own time
it's a
to
thing
look,
then.
it's there as a sort of long-term thing. It's just for interest, and that I'll ship that over. There's a couple of ones I just want to change because they're blurred.
Yeah.
But and it is just sort of trying to just that next stepping stone. Somebody gave me that. I worked as a technician. I qualified as a technician and then went off to university, loved it. Then went off to the Amazon, lived with Amerindians for 3 months and learned about what those basic necessities were. We built them a little harbour or jetty, and every day we camped. Every day we camped, and you find out what those necessities are of life. And not that I'm trying to
taking it right back, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. But but what missing from
Strips away to what you really need.
what you really need, and we forget that. Like you say, it's like we end up being able to design spaces like this, whereas actually fundamentally the diagram for the building is wrong.
Yeah. Because
there shouldn't be any room, even extension without top light or other light or windows or whatever. And okay, but I remember sweating buckets in those courtyard buildings, the quadrangles. But at least you have light, and
Yes.
this isn't Vegas, is it? Where it's just like you don't know day or night. So I've been. I mean, I'm really lucky. I've sort of architecture or being involved in construction is just fantastic. It's a different thing every day. So when that man sort of says yesterday afternoon or yesterday morning, do you want to come in tomorrow morning? It's like, yeah, just do what you talked about last time. But actually, I'm always educating myself. I spent September in Australia with my old tutors from 20 years ago, and that they're doing fantastic stuff, and that they're elders, and that's the thing that we're also losing contact with is that technical knowledge and ability for us as youngsters, me still saying youngster, to learn from our elders. But these guys are 89, 90.
I found these are my old university notes, right? And this guy, he died recently actually, but he used to hand draw all his details and stuff, and I still keep these. They're just like a brilliant reference. He communicated so well, and
that's what I still do. So that's what I was saying in that email or that thing that we issue up to 700 A4 details during construction, because a simple set of drawings doesn't communicate that detail that you need on site. But most builders and clients, most builders actually, don't want me as an architect on site telling them it's not what to do, but together we craft a better detail if they understand what I'm trying to do.
Collaboration, isn't it? And things that they need to be in a mindset where their growth mindset, where they're learning new ways, better ways, because what everyone wants to do is do what they've always done.
That's
it. No, we're doing this. We always do this, but without otherwise things never develop, do they? And that collaboration is like really important.
And that's being lost from sight, but it needs to. I think people are now worried about it. There's a whole generation of Mr. You guys are the future in terms of connecting all of the things that as I term it, elders, and that's what the Amerindians about in Australia, the Aborigines and its First Nation, that there's knowledge there that is about the land, and
once that goes, it's gone. It's gone forever.
It's scary because it's passing that. I mean, we talk about passing on and doing whatever, but it's bigger than that. We need to, I spent 4 years being a technician for somebody. I didn't know diddly when I started, holding a pen and whatever. You spend 4 years, you learn something, then you go to somebody else. And it's all those people who passed information to me. And then London for 10 years was just amazing because it just went like that again. And that you then bring all that back to a practice over here. Yeah, there are people, there are people who believe in it, but it's you're sort of selling magic as well.
Yeah.
Because you're sort of getting people involved in doing 10,000 square feet with rock out of the site that hopefully will look good. But I think if the guys, as I said last time, that other building, that CL2 one, if they've got a chance, see what I know you're.
We'll try and get our heads together and sort of. It's a bit of a rigmarole making trips happen. Especially if it's over some umbrellas, we'll get there and back, can't miss things and all that sort of stuff.
Who goes missing and count them in and out.
So we'll but if we can make it happen, because these guys have double lessons, which makes life a bit easier.
Oh, right, okay.
We get a 2-hour block.
Yeah.
So we could maybe do a Friday morning, period 1 and 2, where we say, right, make your way to some umbrellas.
Yeah.
And we'll meet you there.
Yeah.
So and then everyone's back here for 11:15. That's
because they all have their own transport, do they? Really? I suppose.
Well, a lot of them,
yeah,
mostly.
Yeah.
So we could make that work. And there's students that live out that way anyway, so they don't want to come here to go back there.
No.
So I'm sure we can make something happen. So that'd be good.
If people are interested, it's just it's right at that stage where it's just it's under construction, and
these are the things that turn kids on to doing stuff.
Yeah.
Sitting in front of a computer all day doesn't it?
No, that
you see stuff and go, oh right.
And as you say, those sketches, that's what the link is.
Yeah.
It's how they do that on the site. So.
Okay, I'm going to stop this video. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Hi guys, welcome. Thanks for getting back on time.
Do we have a mock for that?
Sorry?
Do we have a mock for that?
You will have a link for that.